What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Better Than Yesterday podcast. I'm your host, Angelo Kelly. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Number 250. I can't believe we actually made it this far. It's been over 5 years of podcasting. On the back half of the episode, I'm going to talk about some of the lessons that I've learned so far. But the first half of the show, I want to talk about priorities. And if you can hear the sound of my voice, if you've listened to the show before, you know I normally don't sound like this. So I woke up feeling sick yesterday. I didn't feel the best, and then today just woke up with a really sore throat. So I am in between Dayquil right now, so feeling okay to record the show. And that's where today's topic of priorities comes in. And I was going to talk about this originally, but later on in the week, as I started to feel pretty run down and eventually end up getting sick, it reminded me that this is really something that I need to learn and dial in my life. So over the last couple of years, I've been trying everything. I've tried YouTube, Substack, podcasting, all these different things, trying to be consistent on Instagram, but I haven't had one set goal. I haven't had priorities. And the more that I think about even going through the LDX thing that we went through, it's funny, one of the guys mentioned last week that I called it a retreat. It was more like hell. But when we were talking about our goals, we set one goal for each of the four areas that we wanted to improve. So body, being, balance, and business, talked about that last week. But we set one goal for each of them. And when you set one goal for each thing, it's very easy to hit that target because you know exactly what your target is and you know if you're on or off track. If you have a goal or you have a priority of doing multiple different things, but you're not really doing any of them at 100%, you're never going to hit what you want to hit. So it's kind of like a moving target. If you're shooting at a moving target, it's going to be really hard. But if you're standing stationary and you have one target and it's not moving, you know that every decision that you need to make is going to align with hitting that target. And that's my priority right now. I said that my body goal was totaling 237 kilos at finals, but have my actions been aligning with that priority? And if I'm honest with myself, the answer is no. So, as part of our morning routine, we've been doing some fitness in the morning, waking up, moving our body, which has been awesome. But I've started to take that too far, which I do everything in my life. I always take everything 1,000%. So when I hear morning workout, I don't think gradually ease into the day, do a nice warm up, do some stretching. I think, oh, I need to do a full blown workout. So I started adding push ups and squats and sit ups, all these different things. And then I started adding my accessory work. And then I started rucking 2 miles. So this 5 to 10 minute workout that I was supposed to be doing, I took this into, hey, I'm just going to add a second workout in. And then I'm also doing my Olympic weightlifting too. Later on in the week, and this has been going on. I talked about on YouTube doing this 75 hard challenge. I did that for about 25 days, and I basically have just been doing this 75 hard lifestyle without doing the actual challenge. So I would ruck for like 42 minutes and not worry about the last 3 minutes. But when I noticed that I'm starting to go too far, and then it ends up with me either getting sick, getting injured, not being able to do something, and at this point I can't train at all right now. I did do my push-ups and squats this morning, but I can't work towards my priority until I start feeling better, which my actions didn't align with what I said my priority was. And if I boil it down into one statement, it's that if you prioritize everything, you're actually prioritizing nothing. So the more things that you're trying to do, the less that you're able to actually do. And I have noticed that right now in my life, I need to focus on the four areas that I set the 90-day goals on. Those can be the only things that I'm focused on. So I was doing Substack for a while. I really enjoy writing. I'm sure I'll get back to that at a certain point. But I also want the podcast. That's my main focus right now. So I don't want to use ideas that could be great for the podcast and use it on Substack and then not feel like I have a good topic for the show. So that's what I'm prioritizing. I'm doing literally one target and doing everything that in my power to hit that. And then I'll move on to the next target. If I want to get back to writing, I'll get back to writing. But it's about just really focusing on one thing and being able to dial in. So, shifting over to lessons that I've learned from 250 podcast episodes, um, it's even wild to think about 250. That's a lot. I didn't even realize it, but I've just consistently been doing this thing, not really worrying about the results. I talked all about this last week, but yeah, let's get into the 5 lessons that I've learned. And these are going to be unique to me. This isn't going to be the 5 lessons that you need to start a podcast, because this probably won't lead you to having the best podcast, but I think it will lead you to having the best outcome. So your outcome might not be, it might be monetary, and that's great. If your goal is to build a podcast quickly, you can probably do the opposite of all these things and you'll probably make money fast. But I'm talking about if you actually enjoy podcasting and you think that it's something that you could be doing for a long time, these are the 5 tips that I would give you. So the first one, finding your niche. I sound bad. Finding your niche is a quick fix. So everyone will tell you that you need to find your niche. You need to niche down. If you like Olympic weightlifting, talk about that. Even better if you like Olympic weightlifting for women. Even better if you like Olympic weightlifting for women in the 58 kilo class. Like, that's where people will want you to go. And that's great if your goal is to build an audience fast and keep, like, you're just going to keep growing quickly. That's probably going to work. But at the same time, you get pigeonholed into being in this niche that you might not necessarily be interested in anymore. When I first started getting into jiu-jitsu, I wanted to talk to more jiu-jitsu people, and that would, if I was just strictly Olympic weightlifting, that would hurt the podcast because I was talking about things that the audience didn't want to hear. So what I mean by the niche being a quick fix is that you're going to get wrapped up into, you do what works for your audience instead of doing what works for yourself. So it's important that you take into consideration what the audience wants, but also to do this thing for a long time, you have to be interested in what you're talking about. And a couple of these will kind of hit on that as well. So if you are thinking that you need to niche down to start your podcast, I don't agree with that. I think that you should be interested in a lot of different things and figure out what you're actually interested in. The more you talk to people too, I think that's when you'll realize, oh, maybe I wasn't as interested in that as I thought. Number 2, ask for input and don't be mad when you get it. One of the biggest lessons I've learned was actually from Dana on, I think it was like episode 50, but I did this podcast with Coach Blanco. I thought it was the best podcast ever. I got done recording the episode and was just like, oh yeah, that was awesome. I can't wait to put that out. And she was like, you said like 100 times. And I had to go back and listen, and I realized that she was right. So having somebody to give you feedback and genuinely who wants your show to be better, you need that in your life. So being creative, a lot of people, I think, if you put yourself out there, there's people like your family and stuff, they will say, oh, that's so awesome that you're doing this and it's so brave or whatever. But you need genuine people in your life who are going to tell you when something that you put out is shit, and you need to listen to that. So have some people in your life who can tell you your audio quality doesn't sound good, or this wasn't good, or whatever. Sometimes they should give you good feedback too, because you should be improving. But you have to genuinely listen to negative feedback and criticism. I think that's important. But it does need to be from people that you trust. So if random people on the internet are saying your show sucks, that's probably not the most credible person to listen to. But if somebody you love is saying that you could improve on something, you should probably listen to them. Number three, this is probably my most important thing that I would say to anyone starting a podcast, and that is to look for passion, not followers. If you are going to have guests on your show, the most important thing that I could say is that you're talking to people who are passionate about what they're doing. It doesn't matter how big their audience is. I've had some of the best shows that I've recorded have been with people with the smallest audience. And the reason for that is because they're really passionate about what they're doing. We could go on for hours about jujitsu, weightlifting, whatever. And they're not doing it because they have a big audience. They're doing it because they're really interested and they really love it. So when you talk to somebody like that, it's very contagious. It's very easy to see their passion. It's very easy to replicate that in things that you are interested in your own life. So when you're just chasing people who have big audiences, and I know a lot of podcasts do this just because, especially in the beginning, if you talk to people with a lot of followers, if they share it, your show is just going to naturally get more eyeballs. But the flip side of that is if you're talking to people with huge audiences who don't care about you or your show, they're not going to get excited about being on your podcast. So go for people who are really passionate, who can really talk about something that they love doing. And then naturally, I think that leads to amazing conversations. And that's the whole point of podcasting. It's not to, just interview people who have a huge following but aren't interesting at all. So chase passion, not followers. That's probably, if you get one thing from this episode, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, that's the one thing that I would leave you with is don't just look for people with big following. It doesn't mean that people with big followings won't get excited about you or your show. It just means that there's a lot of diamonds in the rough. There's a lot of people like my one buddy, Mike D, and he became a great friend from just doing the show. But when I had him on the podcast, and he won't be mad at me saying this, but he doesn't have an Instagram following or anything like that. But we just had such a genuine conversation, and it was one of the best performing podcasts that I did. I think because it was just a real conversation between two dudes. And people would rather hear that than just hear the person who's been on 100 podcasts get interviewed again and ask the same questions. Number 4, you will always fail at being someone else. This is another important one. If you think smoking weed and talking about UFOs is fun, that does not mean that you should have a podcast about it. It's very easy, especially in today's world, to replicate what other people are doing, especially if it works. And it might work. It might work for you, but it probably will not. You'll probably end up sounding like an idiot. I just think there's so many podcasts in today's world, and if you're trying to be somebody else, if you're trying to just replicate what somebody else is doing, you will always be the knockoff version of them. So if you do have somebody who you look at and you think, oh, I'll just do exactly what they're doing, it might work. It probably won't. You'll probably end up sounding like an idiot. So I would not recommend starting a show where you smoke weed with your buddies and talk about UFOs or conspiracy theories. There are a bunch of podcasts who will do that 100,000 times better than you will. I can guarantee that. So, yeah, be yourself, be authentic, and yeah, nothing else on that one. And the last one, almost no one will follow this, but this is more of a challenge to put it out there. Commit to at least 100 episodes. If you can commit to 100 episodes, you are proving to yourself that podcasting is something that's important to you. It's a value that you have. You're committed to growth. You're committed to learning. And I think if you do 100, you will get exactly what you need. You will not get what you're looking for. You'll get what you need. So when I first started the show, I wanted a big following, wanted money, sponsors, all those things that I thought were going to make me happy, make me fulfilled. That's not what I needed. That's what I wanted. But I got friends who will be friends for the rest of my life. I had people who I didn't realize were rooting for me and supporting me, who were rooting and supporting me. I Yeah, I mean, think about that. Like, just from doing my podcast, I've met people in real life that will be friends with me that came to our small wedding, that, are going to stay at our house, are going to just people that I can call and that I can trust with feedback, with my life, with anything really. That's what I needed from the podcast. I didn't need a big following. I didn't need a big audience or whatever it may be. I didn't need sponsors. I didn't need money. It's what I thought, would make me happy. But to be able to think that there are people who genuinely love me, support me, all for doing this podcast, and that's how they met me. That's pretty crazy to think about. So if you commit to 100, I guarantee you, you will get better. You will find what you're looking for. Like I said, it might not be necessarily what you want. Most people start the podcast and they want those things. They want sponsors, they want money, they want recognition. You might get that, you might not, but it's about getting those things that you need. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you for everybody who tunes in. I can't tell you what it means every time I get a DM from somebody that listens or if they share it out on their social media. I am working on this, but I don't necessarily feel worthy of people sharing it just because I'm literally looking at a camera, drinking my coffee, and talking. So it's not something that comes natural to me. Done 250 of these, but just being grateful, having gratitude, all those things. Um, I just can't really say more, so I don't want to just ramble on. But I appreciate all of you guys. Can't wait to talk to you next week. We got some good things coming for the podcast, so yeah, I'll talk to you later. Peace.